Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's been a few weeks since I've had an actual tech video. As regular followers might know, I've been playing with my race car. It runs again, or did till it had some minor issues, but we're working on those, and then we'll get it back on the dyno. Before you have a picture of it when it was on the dyno. This was a 1200 horse pole that Miles Kerr, aka Gringo Tegra, my co-worker and nemesis in the half mile, was able to get. He has an iPhone, so he can get some really nice video captures and camera captures rather. So I'm very thankful we got the big flame ball, and as everybody knows, chicks dig flames. So thank you, Miles. Appreciate it very much. We're going to talk about tuning methanol today. Not something that is really truly common unless we're full race car, but I think it's kind of important to remove some of the myths about it. And oh, if you do it wrong, you're going to burn your motor up, and it's dangerous, and it's this and it's that. Some of that is true, but it's not complicated when you understand the science. So let's talk about fuel in general. Gasoline, everybody knows, we get at the pump. It's typical EGT is 1600 degrees. You might not have known that. That's at full power. I'm going to refer to full power EGT. I'm not going to talk about idle. I'm not going to talk about cruise. Some of you diesel guys obviously probably pay attention to EGTs. Very important. Most of those similar range to methanol, actually. You know, we prefer to keep towing EGTs down 1000, 1100 degrees. Methanol full power 1150 to 1300. That's the normal range. Now, some of this is based on domestics. Back in the past, where we were running lockout timing on supercharger cars, somebody would tell you 1050 rich, 1250 lean. Not really talking about the fact that the timing is going to affect that, because maybe they didn't know. They didn't understand timing curves were still very, very important. We're going to get into it a little bit. Unfortunately, I did have some sensor malfunctions, so some of the data that I'm going to display is going to be anecdotal, because I'm not going to switch back and forth between logs to show you when one of the EGT sensors decided to work or when it didn't. But as hopefully you've come to appreciate, I'm very truthful in my data, so please believe me. If you choose not to, I do totally understand. But let's get into what is going on with methanol. We're going to open the AEM Infinity software in this case and look at a pull from my car, the one in the flame in particular. And I'm going to just go right to where peak power was, because to me that's kind of the most important data. So what we're going to see is 8600 RPM, 31.2 pounds of boost, 31.1 pounds of boost. I'm not sure why there's a discrepancy there in the AEM, but whatever. We're going to see the target lambda, which we'll get to in a second, 0.61. I was 0.616. We see the feedback is pulling, so it was pulling 5%. I do that on purpose before any of the armchair super tuners start talking about how I did it wrong. The reason is, if the wideband fails, the car will go rich. That's on purpose. Coolant temp 159, oil temps 159, air temp at the manifold, well, technically the upper intercooler pipe, 85 degrees, 16 degrees of timing. The VE number is irrelevant. Battery voltage actually dropped a little bit, because it should be 15.8 volts. Probably should have changed the battery pack on that particular pole. Injector duty cycle is 70.3%. Keep in mind that is with 12 2000 cc, well, 2150 cc injectors. Drive wheel speed in third gear, 151 miles an hour. Obviously, somebody mentioned this before. My slip percentage is Infinity, so that's kind of high. We have third gear being indicated 42.7 pounds of back pressure. This channel, where it says EB pressure 2 and KPA, it says 366. That channel is being used for something else we'll get to in a second. That's not a back pressure channel. EMAP calculated is 1.25 to 1. Now we get down here, we see 112.93 fuel pressure. I am running a big mechanical. Base pressure is 81, almost 82 psi. Oil pressure was 100 psi. Coolant pressure 14.5, perfect. Crankcase pressure is 2.37 psi. I hijacked my EMAP channel for crankcase pressure. Pardon me, I can spit it out. So not much blow-by going on methanol there, 2.37. So we're going to kind of get back to the tuning, why we do what we do, and some of the effects. Now, typically, you're going to notice most tuners like to use lambda. I don't, because I want a quick reference in relation to what I'm used to, which is gasoline scale. But when we switch to the gasoline scale on methanol, we can't play the same game we do on E85 or E98. Because when we convert that 0.61 lambda, boy howdy, we got 9.0. Way rich, but it's what methanol wants. Methanol will run a 9.0 to a 9.3 gasoline scale air fuel, or 0.61 to 0.635 lambda to be happy. Now, ethanol or gas, we're going to run that 0.80 like we always do. Cannot do that on methanol. At least if you want any amount of life out of the motor. So these values we run a lot richer. Now, when we talk about the EGTs, this particular log doesn't have any good EGT data. And I'm going to circle back to that in just a second. But normally, we're looking for somewhere between 1150 and 1250 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I'm not going to fib or beat around the bush. I bought the cheapest EGT sensors I could, thinking they're all made the same. This is certainly not the case. Now, when I switch to where the EGT data is, you're going to see 4 of them are at almost 6,000 degrees. Obviously, that didn't happen. One is 564 degrees, and one's negative 136 degrees, which at 1,194 horsepower was definitely not happening. So you jiggle the wires, and then all of a sudden, that data starts to behave. Then when we get down here and select the area, we have 1,251 degrees. Same 8,600 RPM. This particular pull was a little bit more pressure, but it didn't make a bunch more power because of some mechanical problems. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you know it's because I chose to use lash caps instead of having custom longer valves made or waiting for the correct rocker tappet to come into stock. That was a big mistake. We're going to kind of work through some of that. But the 1,250 degrees, that's real. For whatever reason, and we'll go to one more here. You can jiggle these Chinese sensors. There, I said it out loud. Where to go? Where's the final? Oh, there it is. And then all of a sudden, they'll start working. I had already dialed this in on gasoline when they were all 6 working. So I feel a little bit better about it. Oh, there we go, 1260, 1160. Kind of gives you an idea. I did start to lean it out. The 1,223 horsepower that it made was on a leaner target. It was on the 926. As you can see, it ran a 934 actual. Again, I was leaving it rich on purpose. So before the trash talkers start, that was my plan. Because if the wideband dies, I want this thing to go rich. I don't want it to go lean and burn a motor. I don't want to melt pistons, jet heads. Things are really, really expensive. Going rich just ruins spark plugs. So that is, again, on purpose. Anyway, let's go back to the run that we started with, which is run 14. We're going to look at some of this info. But we're going to go back to where we were. We're going to get to the 8600 or thereabouts. 8613 I think is kind of my magic number. Maybe that's the best we're going to do. Anyway, the whole reason is that's where it made peak power. We'll just kind of stop there, because it gives us a rough idea of what it's doing. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So we've established some EGT data. 1170, 1250, somewhere in that range. Timing affects EGT. The more timing you run, the colder the EGT is going to be, because more combustion's happening in the combustion chamber versus the exhaust manifold. So we can't use EGT if we're moving timing around, but we can based on air fuel. Leaner is hotter. Okay, we all know that. Great. But the dream is to keep the motor somewhere under 1300 degrees if we can. There are several cars that you can run a lot hotter than that. I don't necessarily say that that's a great plan, but by and large, your VR38s, so all your GTRs, they'll run 1300 degrees or more, 1400 degrees on M1. And it's important to mention it's M1, not M5, because M5 has some extra additives in it that you definitely have to run richer and keep the temps down. At any rate, we can get away with some of these hotter temps because we have modern solutions. We're not overheating the cylinders down low, down in this range, where maybe a static timed car, i.e. your blower big block from 1980, it's going to run the same timing there as it does out the top. So your EGT doesn't really ever change. But we run less timing, so it's hotter down low and then cooler up top as the timing starts to come back in. So when we switch to the actual power graph of the one in question here, this is run 14. We go over to DynoJet software. Whammico blammo, we see 1194, 8600 RPM, 787 foot-pounds of torque. Because of how I choose to do the boost curve, I don't really care on the dyno to spike down low in this range. This turbo really doesn't do much down there anyway, even though it is a 3.7 liter motor. But at 31 pounds, it was making 1194 out the top. So the methanol really doesn't tune terribly different than ethanol as far as timing. We're going to run similar timing. We're going to run more boost. The methanol absorbs a lot of the latent heat in the charge, so we get some additional intercooling going on. I choose to view it kind of as an octane boost, if you will, because we just add lots and lots of methanol. I ran this motor at an 8.8 air fuel on a gas scale, which is 0.59. I started leaning it out. It started picking up power, started picking up drive energy. Now, this is an 8.8 air fuel target, more or less. We saw the 9.0, the 0.61 lambda. The next pole actually made a little less down low, about the same out the top. And then the last one, there were some issues where it spit some lash caps out. Again, because I chose to shortcut. That's all on me. But when I leaned it out to that 9.3 air fuel target, so the 0.635, I believe, lambda, it had a lot more available drive energy. We see in the green line there. A lot more torque. Just tremendously more. But because I had 21 valves out of 24, right around here, things started getting way out of control. It powered out. It still made 1,223 horsepower. That was 35 pounds of boost. Now that I am going to correct all those problems, I'm assuming that we'll see this curve kind of follow out and it's going to be up here. I think that at that same 35, we're going to do like 1280, maybe 1290. We'll see. It does what it does. I'm not going to bench race that number. But you can see that as things started to go wrong, the power started to drop because I was losing exhaust valves on the front bank. Don't bang the rev limiter and have lash caps. That's the moral of that story. Make sure your valve lash is good if you have a system that uses rocker arms that you have to adjust, B series, K series, basically any Honda. If you have a Mitsu, if you have a 4G63, you can have rocker arm problems because the lifters can collapse. It can shoot rockers. Rev limiters are bad news with high back pressure. At any rate, we're gonna continue to see what this does on methanol. It's been tremendously improved over the ethanol. I've had questions why. Aaron, you didn't really change much in your system. Where did all this extra power come from? So I have a slightly larger motor. Obviously, that's going to give me a little bit. The cylinder heads are more or less the same. The cams are exactly the same. I'm still using the same TB Motorworks stage 1.5 big boys. I'm using Slick Fab Performance valve springs, which Eric and I collaborated on for 2 years before we put into production. I'm 103 pound seat pressure, so I can rev now. Where'd the power come from? Two things. I really truly believe that 99% of this is the intake manifold, which is an ASP Headers Advanced Street Performance J Series specific intake manifold. The lower runners flow something like 420, 425 CFM, where the ported stock lower only flows 265. Well, that's great. The head flows way more than 265. So now we're taking advantage of that. So that's a big portion of it. I shouldn't say 99%. The rest of it is obviously now I have an optimized turbo kit. I'm not using eBay headers with a Y-pipe setup. Joe at Trial Performance designed a beautiful turbo kit. You've all seen it. You know, we can go back to the main picture here. Oops, what did I do? Oh, I minimized. I didn't minimize. You can see the headers. They're engineered length, they're big tube. Between the two, between the headers and the intake manifold, we have a winning combination that has moved the power way up. And surprised me. I mean, this motor made 400 wheel at 3 pounds. It did 600 at 12 on pump gas. It did 903 at 22 on methanol when everything was working good. Obviously now we have the 1194 at 31 pounds. So it's just making really good power. And a lot of that is having adequate inlet. Then you have to be able to get the airflow out. Good in, good out. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Giggo. Computer stuff. So we have a really good intake manifold. Now we have a really good turbo kit. So everything's matched. So it's making good power per pound. That kind of concludes this. I realize we didn't necessarily talk about all of the secrets of methanol, but the main thing is individual EGTs. Buy sensors that work. ISPRO, Instrument Service Products. Diesel guys will know them. They're based in Portland, Oregon. Buy good sensors. It's worth the $70 per sensor. Even though they are an expendable, consumable type operation, you need to know the data. Don't make the mistake I did and buy the Chinese one because it was 27 bucks. It didn't last. It has wiring issues that I might be able to fix, but frankly, I'm going to throw them away because they're irritating. Buy good sensors there. Methanol, run it rich, run a 0.61, a 0.62 lambda, so that 90, 91 air fuel. Don't change your timing. You don't have to. Just run more boost. Have fun. So we have a 19 going on 20-minute video here. If you've stuck around, I appreciate it. If this is content you like, please consider subscribing. Please press the like button if you did enjoy this video, if it gave you some info you didn't have before. If you do those things, consider pressing the bell. It will give you notifications anytime we have updates. If maybe this is something that you think some of your friends would like, because we do get a little bit more in-depth on tech, encourage them to subscribe as well. In the next couple weeks, we're going to have more information based on my car specifically. We'll get back to the normal channel and have general tech. Please put ideas that you want to see in the comments below. I'll look at them. We'll do them as we can. Thanks, guys. Hope everybody's doing good. Take care.